anything that can limit their capability or confuse them more or lessen their accuracy is a good thing. Good thing. It's a good day for Ukraine in this war, which is, we're almost going to into year 5. And I got to say as well, Elon Musk, who's not doesn't set the mercury very high in terms of his ethical temperature. For him to do this is a pretty significant thing. I do wonder whether it was a bit of pressure or a phone call from Donald Trump. But for him to do that and limit Russia's capability is good. Because do not forget, was it last year perhaps, that he threatened or actually did limit the Ukrainians' capability to use Starlink because he thought it would escalate the war. So, as you said, things move very, very quickly, whether it's this war geopolitically. And this is another kind of line that's been crossed that we'll remember for quite some time.
And why do you think it's taken this long for Russia to be banned from Starlink? As you say, Elon Musk has had a bit of a checkered history with the Ukrainian government, hasn't he?
Yes, he has. I don't know why it's taken so long, but I answer it this way if I can, is that I think a technological workaround will be found quite quickly. Because when you're Vladimir Putin and you have friends like the clerics in Iran, you have Xi Jinping in China, North Korean leader. Let's not forget, China has been accused of sharing dual-use technology to Russia. So I think they'll find a wraparound pretty quickly, unfortunately. But for the time being, I think it provides badly needed relief, not only for the Ukrainian military, that of course has also been targeted by drones, but for civilians themselves who are still enduring this very, very severe cold snap and Russian missiles and drones targeting critical infrastructure. It probably could not have come at a better time.
And Russia is also facing a ban of sorts from Indian oil refineries. Donald Trump is claiming India is going to halt their imports in exchange for alleviating US tariffs. Is that likely to actually go ahead? Because we haven't heard it from the Indians yet. And if it did go ahead, what do you think the impact would be on the Russian energy economy?
Yeah, I've been following this story pretty I've been following this story pretty closely, and I think it was as recently as 24 hours ago. I did check the Indian news sources, and you're right that it doesn't look like the Indians have agreed to this. As a matter of fact, Indian sources quoted by some, fairly reputable Indian media outlets said that Russia has actually increased its discount of Russian crude to the refineries. I think it was up to about $10 a barrel. Goes to show you how dependent they are on Indian purchases of Russian oil, because it does actually fund their war machine. To give you an example of the numbers we're talking about, Lewis, since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in February of 2022, Russia has earned a lot of change from sale of Russian fossil fuels, 450 billion US dollars. And about 150 billion a year comes from the energy transported by the so-called Russian shadow fleet. $450 billion, that's more than double of what Europe has given to Ukraine in terms of military aid, budgetary aid, and humanitarian support since the start of the war. And of the 450 billion Russia has earned in fossil fuel sales, 190 billion of that came from the EU. I raise this because I think European leaders are either unwilling or unable to reduce their dependency. It has come down. We have to give them credit for that. I think part of the problem here is that the political landscape in Europe is changing. Leaders are afraid to be tougher on Russia because it may open up some economic pain, may trigger some economic pain for their constituents. And, we also look, for example, we look at Belgium or Austria. Some of their companies are still active in Russia. Their banks are active. And they're afraid if they put the chokehold on the Russian economy too much, these companies may be nationalized by Mr. Putin. Uh, I probably don't even have to tell you this because you're so used to hearing it, but they can either pay a smaller price now and do what it takes to put the noose around the neck of the Russian economy or Mr. Putin, or they can pay a much higher price later on. It's up to them.
And where does this leave India in the Ukraine-Russia conflict then? Because they have sort of walked the line of trying not to align themselves too closely with Russia, the way that China has. At the same time, you could almost call them a sort of economic ally of the Russian Federation. What do you think this leaves for Modi? Where do you think he's trying to position himself?
Yeah, this is pretty fresh on my mind because I wrote about it for World Briefing the day before yesterday, I believe it was. And, India does like to project itself as a non-aligned country. It does like to seek supportive partners for territorial integrity. Let's not forget it has territorial disputes with Pakistan as well as China. So you would think that Mr. Modi would be defending the Ukrainians more in terms of their war with Ukraine. Ukrainians remember very well that when that horrible, horrible bombing of a children's hospital happened in Kiev, a Russian bombing, Mr. Modi went to Russia and was pictured hugging Mr. Putin. That's a bitter memory that Ukrainians still deservedly have to this day. Uh, I last time I was in Delhi, I did talk to some quite well informed Indian sources there, and they did tell me that they are slowly shifting their dependence on energy away from Russia. They're also doing the same with buying arms as well, because there's quite a history in terms of military purchases between India and Russia. But again, they said it does take some time. But I think if they do get round to reducing these purchases, uh, it will really have a poke a hole into the Russian economy. Now, it does take Mr. Trump as part of the equation here because he did tell the Indians that they would have access to Venezuelan oil. The problem there, of course, is that it's going to take quite some time to get the Indian refineries up and running. To get that oil output out so it could be sent to American refineries and then sent onward. And then, even Canada has a role here. It's in the process of not only repairing or resetting its relationship with China, but also with India. And if the political hurdles can be overcome by Mr. Carney and more pipeline capacity built between our big oil producing province, Alberta, and the West Coast, where ships can come and pick this stuff up and deliver perhaps to India, that would help India reduce its dependency. One last thing here. Also, when I was in India, the Indians did tell me that, hey, one of the reasons that we have got into the business of buying Russian oil is because we were under pressure by the Americans to do so, because then we could sell it to the Europeans to reduce their dependency on Russian energy. A bit of a complicated map or geopolitical picture there, but that's the kind of balls in the air that we're seeing right now.